up on the stairs.
Did you ever notice that David Bowie has different eye colors?
Brown and green?
Exactly. There's a story behind this. 15-year-old South Londoner David Robert Jones got into a fight with his childhood best friend, whom we also know, George Underwood. He punched him in his left eye and his eye was permanently dilated, which gave Bowie his iconic image. But most importantly, he never held a grudge against his friend. In fact, they worked together on Bowie's album covers and remained friends for life.
I could escape this feeling with my China girl.
Unfortunately, many people misjudge Bowie by calling him a queer.
That's not very nice, guys.
He was weird in the best way possible. Before creating this androgenic image and taking the first step towards queer concept in modern society, BBC interviewed 17-year-old David Bowie. He spoke on behalf of Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Long-Haired Men, which he co-founded. Imagine that, we're talking about 1964, homosexuality was illegal in England. Sorry Neil Armstrong, but even if you do walk on the moon, you can't get any more badass than that. Loving what you do and being passionate about it is much more rewarding than fame or money. You can cross oceans. David Bowie was proof of that. Oslo 2004, in a festival concert, a lollipop stick flew and stuck into his eye. His first reaction was, "You wanker!" But then he screamed,
Flowers will have to do an even longer show.
Exactly! Seconds after the lollipop stuck into his eye, he tried comforting the person by saying, "Don't worry, I have one eye that's functioning well and it's not this one." Let's talk about David Bowie's vision. Many believed he could see the future.
They might be right.
Maybe that's the reason everyone thought he was timeless. Now we are bombarded with technology and apps. We use iTunes, Spotify. No one buys CDs or vinyls. This wasn't the case 20 years ago. In 1996, he released his single Telling Lies, which was only available online. It took 11 minutes for people to download the song. When he saw this bump on the road, he did what any visionary would do. He opened his own internet service provider, BowieNet. Some of his experimental music works were so beyond his time, it took other musicians 30 years to catch up. In his album Low, he had a single called Subterraneans. It was about people stuck on either side of the Berlin Wall, about their longings. It was mostly instrumental with random words. 30 years later, we see bands like Sigur Rós, Cocteau Twins and Ekova following his steps.
You should know that Bowie's music was irrelevant to the time he was in.
Yeah, he didn't have the concept of past and future. He created what humanity needed.
In the dance hall, oh man, look at those cavemen go. Who's in the best-selling show? Is their life on Mars?
Imagine that you were born when Europe started trying to cover the scars of World War II.
And you're in the time of space race era. You want to try to express yourself by using everything. Music, sculpturing, painting. When you realize these are not enough to express yourself, you decide to break your own wall. You have to become someone else. You have to become something else. To break this suppressing society, Bowie made the most creative thing anyone could ever think of. He used space race to reflect what young people felt in the streets of London. Anxiety, fear.
When he wrote Space Oddity, mankind hadn't even landed on the moon.
However, Bowie, as always, knew what's about to come. In his next album, Hunky Dory, he told us about life on Mars. And the one who revealed the message was Ziggy himself.
This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade.
1972. Why was this year so special?
Was it because it was a leap year?
No, but because it was full of people claiming they would make the world a better place. The United States brought peace to Asia, Vietnam. They launched the space shuttle. The RAF wanted peace and equality in Germany, so they thought that the best way was bombing around. They launched another space shuttle. British Army accidentally shot 14 unarmed civilians. Oops, you bloody Sunday! When all these people were trying to make the world a better place, there was a messenger who actually did want to make a difference. His name was Ziggy Stardust. He was a bisexual alien rock star who came to Earth to bring a message from extraterrestrial beings. People argue over differences, but face it, you cannot be more different than a bisexual alien rock star. The world's natural resources were almost over, adults lost their attachment to reality, and kids were on their own. Ziggy tried helping them by warning them about the black holes, which would have come to kill Ziggy. Yes, this was the end of everything. Body-seeking black holes came and tore Ziggy apart. Now we want you to keep these dying stars in mind. When he went to conquer the United States, he didn't go as Ziggy. He took the harder road. He created Simple Dressing Cabaret Man, the Thin White Duke. He created his own version of soul music when the United States was traveling with Soul Train. He took American soul and wrapped it in plastic and called it the Plastic Soul. He had the first #1 hit in the USA with his soul music, and he was the first white man to perform on the Soul Train TV show. But that's not the reason we're mentioning this point. After the States, he went to Berlin to recover his soul, earlier than the fall of the Wall of Berlin. People had to give up on their loved ones to cross to the other side. He reproduced this pain in isolation and made 3 amazing albums. Later, we would remember it as the Berlin Trilogy. John Lennon once said he would like to make an album better than Heroes. In Heroes, he tells a story of 2 lovers who were separated by the Berlin Wall and would stick to the sides of the wall to communicate. His message was so deep. And after his decease, the German Foreign Ministry wrote him a message that read,
Thank you for helping to bring down the Berlin Wall.
My entire career, I've only really worked with the same subject matter. The trousers may change, but the actual words and subjects I've always chosen to write with are things to do with isolation, abandonment, fear, and anxiety. All of the high points of one's life. This alone explains why we love David Bowie and why we would miss him too much. He tells stories to misfits, outcasts, and weirdos. His stories were there when we were anxious about the future. He sympathized with our fears, anxieties, and with what it is to be abandoned and humiliated when you're different, like being a girl who likes playing with cars instead of dolls, or youngsters who shaved only half of their head.
We passed upon the stair.
In fact, whatever you know about alternative culture, or whoever you know as alternative music, cinema, fashion, literature, they were all influenced by David Bowie. The new wave wouldn't be a trend in the 80s without him. Joy Division and post-punk wouldn't be as we know them. Ian Curtis would be probably sitting at home waiting for his retirement. Who would influence glam, Daft Punk, or forget about that? What about dance rock from the early 2000s?
Or even Lady Gaga.
You know, you've always been sharp. You've gone through a lot of changes, but always sharp. Do you save wardrobe?
Every single thing that I've had. A lot of the Ziggy Stardust things in the early 70s. Zippy Stardust.
These what might sound like irrelevant artists all have something in common. They're all misfits.
Ziggy play guitar, jamming good with weird.
What could be more important than influencing people?
The man himself.
And throughout this list, we pointed out why David Bowie is so important to us. Throughout the history of mankind, there has been bright minds that are always ahead of time. Bowie, without a doubt, was one of them. We can say he had the Cassandra curse. To make people believe in him, he had to be the story itself. Experimenting through the 90s, he waited until 2013 to release his 24th album on his birthday. We couldn't guess what was coming, but clues were there. The name of the album came out the next day, a story about resurrection.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Marion. Thank you, everybody.
Then he released a single, Stars Are Out Tonight. He said stars are there, watching us, waiting for us. Then they'll have us. They'll disappear, but they shouldn't.
They are the stars that dying for you, but I hope they live forever.
3 years later, he released his last album.
On the day of execution,
We didn't get any hints from the name of the album. We couldn't even understand after watching Lazarus' video, when he showed us a dead astronaut. But again, he knew the future. He knew how the story would end. Ziggy had said it 34 years before, with a black hole, with a dying star. Hence the name of his last album, Black Star, which we know as David Bowie or David Robert Jones, Ziggy Stardust, the bisexual alien rock star, or the Thin White Duke. He was all of them and none of them. An outcast from south of London. He was scattered over 25 albums. He was us. David Bowie, you were our guide. We will miss you, the man who fell on earth.
look up here, I'm in heaven. I've got scars that can't be seen. I've got drama, can't be stolen. Everybody knows me now.
Hey, tell us what are your favorite David Bowie songs. It was very hard to narrow it down to only 10. Check out our Facebook to see our music, cinema, and other trends. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Check out these videos and those ones. Enjoy!